So we're up to Shin Lamed Daled Seif Chaf Aleph, working through again the halachas of fires that happen on Shabbos. Says the Mechaber, Ha'apikarsim Dahainu Ha'adukim B'Avodas Kechovim. Those people who are very attached, they cling to Avodah Zarah. V'chein Mumarim and converts L'Avodas Kechovim, who convert away from Yiddishkeit. Shekasvu Lahem Kisvei Kodesh, who write Kisvei Kodesh. Those types of Seforim you do not save from a fire on Shabbos. And not only that, even during the week, you need to burn them with the Azkaras. Even though they've got Shemus Hashem, they've got all the various Shemus, you burn a Sefer Torah that is written by an Apikoros. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Shekosvu, Afilu Kosv Ashuris al Klaf V'Dyoy. Even though it was written with all the right ingredients, you've got a klaf, and you've got ksav ashuris, and you've got the proper ink, you've got dioi, nevertheless, a Sefer Torah written by an apikoros it has no kedusha, and therefore you have to get rid of it. Imo azkaros, and you can burn it with the azkaros. Shekivin shem adukim, bevadai kosvois on the shem avodas gilulim. Since they are attached, clinging to avodah zarah, then clearly they wrote it l'shem avodah zarah, and therefore there has no kedusha. Well, what about tefillin that were written by an apikoros or someone who is not religious? How does that work? So if you look at footnote 49, he addresses that. He says, "V'chein legabe tefillin shekoson apikoros shemevu b'shulchan aruch le'el sheyisrafu bi'am b'mishnah berurah sham she'atam lezehu shemenastam hu koisvan l'shem avodah zarah." Again, someone who is clinging to avodah zarah, he's going to write even tefillin l'shem avodah zarah, and therefore the klafim have no kedusha. And moreover, the tefillin sheknichtu alidei Yehudi she'ena oduk b'avodah zarah. What about tefillin written by someone who is not necessarily sort of clinging to avodah zarah? Avol eina mam midivrei Chazal. He's an apikoros in as much as he doesn't believe in Torah Sheba'al Peh or in the Rabbanons. Kosov b'alocha sham she'enim kasherim. These tefillin are not kosher. Nevertheless, they do need gniza. Because maybe they messed up on some halachas, like we discussed. Remember, we discussed way back in Hilchos Tefillin that you need a lot of your Shemaim to be a sofer, because there's so many things that could go wrong. Even though you see that he's actually medakdek, and it's questionable whether they're going to be kosher. So it applies to a Sefer Torah that is written by someone who's oduk in Avodah Zarah, and tefillin written by a Jewish person who is not so careful in halacha. They're not kosher tefillin, but they still need gniza. Okay, continuing the Mishnah Berurah here. Sifkot, we're in Nun base, the third line. The second line. Coins of silver and gold that were minted by people who were attached to Avodah Zarah. Sometimes you have decorative coins hanging from a Sefer Torah. You can't have them if they were produced by a person who is connected to Avodah Zarah. And not only that, you shouldn't keep it in your reshus. You should melt them down. There should be no remnant or memory of their actions. He's even mesupik if you're allowed to mint them, to melt them down. Because maybe they're not. Because maybe they were not done l'shem avodah zarah. Shel Shem ben Daled, that he allows you to melt coins where you have the Shem, the four letter Shem of Hashem on them. Shenasim b'medinas Shveden. You know where that is? Shvedia, Sweden. Yeah, Sweden. So that's interesting. That's a good quiz question. Where does Sweden appear in the Mishnah Berurah? Okay, now you know. So you've got coins that were minted in Sweden. Mitam ki nitzbu lo yitziam v'hoyu lehu. And therefore they were written for secular purposes. So the Tshuvas Chavos Yoy allows to melt coins that even if they have the Shem Hashem, and that was apparently done in Sweden, because it was it's a bit like on the US dollar, in God we trust. Is that right? That's written on every US dollar. It's not written L'Shem Kedusha, it's written L'Shem Chol. Well, so too over here, if it was on the coins, he allows you, these Swedish coins, he allows you to melt them. כאילו נכתב L'Shem Chol. וכן מה שפרימי קודם אין שם. עוד כוסף מה שנוהגים באיזה קהילה שמברכין חיילה וגויבין מויס מכל אחד המניחין הכלי עם המויס לתוך ארון הקודש. You have the pushka, right? And it's kept in the Aron HaKodesh. Lo yofa oisin. It's not a good thing. Ayin sham. That's not a good thing. Why? If you look at the footnote 50, Vatam adova bia hataz sheyesham tuma al hamatbeis. There's a shame tuma on the coins, and therefore they shouldn't be kept in the Aron HaKodesh. Ubalav hachi also lahasim l'toich Aron HaKodesh dvash el chol. To use any secular thing, dvash el chol, for keeping an Aron HaKodesh is not allowed. Al kein yesh nimloya haminag. Don't use the Aron HaKodesh for storage of divrei chol. Okay, chof beis. Teva she'ochaz ba'ha'ar. Says the Mechaber, a cupboard which catches fire. Yochel lifres ar shel gdi mitzida ha'acher. You're allowed to cover it, to spread over it, leather from a goat on one side. Shelo tisarif that won't burn. It's not going to burn the whole cupboard. V'osim mechitza b'chol hakelim lahafsik bein adleka. And you're allowed to make a mechitza to prevent a fire from spreading. Even if you've got earthenware pots which are full of water, you're allowed to put them in the way of a fire to stop it spreading, because they will certainly burst when the fire gets near them. Because you're not actively putting out the fire. It's gram kibui. It's indirect putting out the fire, which is allowed b'makom peseda in a situation which is going to cause loss. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Gimel, Arshal Gdi Lach. This leather of a goat leather, you've moistened it, you've wetted it. Va'ayin b'siman shinches sif chafeilin in muksa. Ach lefi mavu le'el b'sif beis b'der rishona de tilta muksa mutav b'makom peseda osi shape b'pshitas. Even though this item is a sort of a moist, a wet leather, goat leather, is muksa. But still, if b'makom peseda, it would be allowed to cover it over a cupboard to prevent the spreading of this fire. Okay, weiter. Chaf Gimel. Talis she'ochaz b'ha'ar. If you've got a beged, talis or some other garment which has caught fire, paishta, you can spread it out. By spreading it out, that will somehow it will put it out, and therefore we're not choshesh that will naturally extinguish, and you haven't done a ma'aseh of kibui because you just spread it out, and that's okay. So long as that's not your intention. And says the Ramah, you're allowed to put some sort of a bowl or something on top of a candle, that it shouldn't catch fire to the ceiling roof, which is above it, the beam above it. Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah, Paishta, Sifkot and Nundalid, Shalotia Mukpeles. You can spread out the beged, but it's not folded, so that the fire won't spread over all of it. Hu medivrei hatur. That's the lashon of the Tur. Your intention is not to extinguish that which has already been lit, which is already burning. It's going to stop the spread. If this is going to totally put out the fire, no problem. That's not your intention. Even if it is your intention, it's allowed. That don't run around and try and sort of flap around in order that you're going to extinguish the fire. You wave it around that it will extinguish. And it's not appropriate to do this. But rather, you should just cover yourself with the towel, with the talis, this blanket, and that way it will naturally go out. You're allowed to open it up and read from it. And if it goes out, it goes out. You're allowed to call a non-Jewish person to put it out, which is coming up. Ka'ara, Alaner, Besiman Reish Ayin, Zayin, Bi'arnu De'in Zeh Hatev, Din Zeh Hatev Mishnah Berurah Ayin Shom. Okay, the details of that one were back there in Reish Ayin Zayin. Okay, Chavdalet. Yesh Eimrim, she'en yochel litin alav mashkin kadei sheyivka kshagyeh lahem. You're not allowed to put water on something that when the fire gets there, it will extinguish the fire. You are allowed to b'shah mashkin chutz min hamayim. So imagine you've got a beged and you want to put some liquid on it so that the fire doesn't come to this beged. So the first opinion is you can't put any water on or any liquid. The second opinion is you can, but not water, mishum kibbutz, because water, saturating a beged with water is a form of laundry, which is not allowed. And the third opinion is that you can even do it with water. I.e., you can wet the beged, but not with water. Says the Mishnah Berurah Chavdaled, she'ein yochel. What's this going on? You can't put any liquid on it. The dafka lahafsik b'kelim, dafka to put kelim in the line of where the fire is traveling. Melei mayim shari, that's okay. She'ein hamayim be'ein, because the water is not there, sort of in the actual in essence. Aval hachash hamayim be'ein, here you put the water in the beged and it's direct. It's sort of a closer form of kibui, and therefore it's less of a gram kibui, and that's why it's osa v'osa. Shemuta sifkot nun ches svir lehu zezel echom migram kibu ba'alma deshari. Because this opinion is that it's no worse than gram kibu, which is allowed. Mishum kibus to kaimelon shrius beged zel kibusoi. Saturating a beged is a form of laundry. Vayesh matim svir lehu delo shaykh zeh ela b'makom sheyesh tinuf oidam. And others, the third opinion, which says it's allowed even with water, is because it's only a problem if you've got some stain on the beged. You've got blood there or you've got something else, that's when you can't saturate it. But otherwise, saturating a beged would be okay. But divrei svara, so the Shulchan Aruch paskins like the second opinion, ayin le'el, siman shin beis, siftes be'alocha, i.e. that it's dafka with other liquids, but not you cannot saturate a beged with water, but with other liquids it's not a problem of kibbutz. Okay, let's just do one more. Chofei, ein Yehudi, a non-Jewish person, shebol lechabos, who comes and says, "Let me extinguish the fire." Ein tzorich limchos beyodo. You do not need to protest, and you can allow him to do it. Avol katan shebol lechabos, tzorich limchos beyodo. A child who comes to put out the fire, then you have to protest. So what's the difference? Why is it that a non-Jewish person, you don't have to protest and you allow him to do it, but not with a cotton? Okay, we'll see. Says the Mishnah Berurah Chof Samach Aleph. Ein Yehudi. To Ein Yehudi, adaited the nafshik ovid. He's doing it on his own volition. Even though he knows that it's good for the Jewish person, he's doing it ultimately for himself. He knows that he's not going to lose out, i.e. he'll get payment for it. Involved, if he does something for the benefit of Yisrael, where the actual body of the Yisrael benefits, we don't apply this principle that the non-Jewish person did it for his own benefits and maybe he'll get paid or something like that. And therefore a light or a fire made by a non-Jewish person for a Jewish person, you cannot get benefit for it, even if it's adaited denafshe. But if he comes and says, "I'll put out the fire," you don't have to stop. Even if he's a hired help. He's doing it totally for his own benefit, and therefore it would be allowed, and I'm not getting personal benefit from my body from it, and therefore it would be okay. Says the Mishnah Berurah Samach Gimel, you can't encourage him, you can't say faster, or I'll pay you double, or whatever it is. But a child who comes to put out the fire, we said that you've got to stop. So what's the chiluk? Why is it with a child you've got to tell him to stop? So it says Mishnah Berurah Samach Daled, even a young child, we assume a child doesn't do it adaita denafshe, and is doing it for the benefit of his father. He's doing it for his father. The father is mitzuva on the making sure the child keeps Shabbos and doesn't break it, and therefore he's got to stop his child if he's about to put out the fire. You still need to protest. Okay, biyodei. Va'ayim beis Yosef. Va'afilu im bo lechabes deleka. Because ultimately he is doing, even if it's not for you, he's doing it for somebody else, and that's not allowed. If you look at 59, he says a child who does a malacha for an adult, you cannot get benefit from that, even b'diavad. So that's just the rules of child. So just to summarize what we said today that you're allowed to put out barrels of water in the way of the fire, and that's gram kibbutz, that would be allowed. And you're allowed also to unfold the beged if that's going to put it out, or a Sefer Torah, you're allowed to open it up and read from it if that's going to extinguish it. That's all gram kibbutz. But telling a non-Jewish person who wants to come, he's volunteering to put it out, you don't need to protest. He's allowed to do it because it's adaita de nafshe, even though you can't get hana from things done by a non-Jewish person on Shabbos, such as him making a fire, putting on a light. That's different. The difference is because there I'm getting personal warmth, my own body, I'm getting direct benefit. But here he's just sort of extinguishing a fire, he's doing adaita de nafshe, that's allowed. Masha inchin, a child who volunteers to put it out, tzorech limches, because he's doing it for his father, or stam, even if he's not doing it for his father, he's doing it for another gadol, you're not allowed to get benefit from melacha done by a cotton, even b'diavad, and you've got to wait b'chtei shiasu if he does do it. Okay.